It was Krampus. And as he had for thousands of years, Krampus came not to reward, but to punish. Not to give, but to take. He and his helpers. I could only listen as they dragged my family into the underworld, knowing that I would be next. But Krampus didn't take me that night. He left me as a reminder of what happens when hope is lost, when belief is forgotten, and the Christmas spirit dies.
It's extras and epilogues. Open the theater. Lights, cameras, action. Movies and reviews that you might not know. What happens to your favorite characters? Let's get on with the show.
A boy who has a bad Christmas accidentally summons a festive demon to his family home. No, we're not talking about the new Jack Black horse shit that's available for free on trashtube.skibbity or whatever they're called. This is an actual Christmas movie filled with joy and cheer and nope, I got the wrong movie. Okay. This one's actually a nightmarish tale of we'll see what happens. I've lost myself now. We're talking about Krampus on the show tonight on Extras and Epilogues on the Podzilla 1985 network. I want to apologize to everybody real quick. I'm a little distracted because right before the show we had a lengthy Hunter explained to Zach and I the plot behind Skibbity Toilet, and now I have nothing left in the reserves. My humanity is gone.
That's it.
It's when he started talking about the Astro toilets and the scientist toilet that I went, what's wrong with us?
Plunger Man. Don't forget about Plunger Man.
What's wrong with us as a society? And you know what? That ties into the film we're watching tonight, because the young boy in tonight's film also wonders what's wrong with society and what's wrong with his family as he's forced to endure Christmas with the in-laws once again. It is Krampus. The theater is open. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Shannon Young, and tonight it's continuing our Christmas tradition here on the show. We talk about Christmas films every year, and we have two sets of films this year. I think we've described before. We have our Christmas movies, and then we have our Nicolas Cage films. This is the Christmas side of it, and it's not often we get a Christmas horror movie to review. I think last year we did Gremlins, arguably a horror film. This one definitely is a horror film.
I was scared.
You were scared when that little Jack in the Box popped out.
No, I was scared when Gremlins. I was scared of Gremlins.
I was scared of how entertaining.
I still understand how he got that little gun.
See, Zach, I told you to bring it up.
Where did he get it?
We were talking about this before the show.
Where did it come from?
That's Hunter Hendricks, by the way. That's Double H.
I would have never said a word about Gremlins had you not brought it up. You spent all of last week's show continuously complaining about how much I did not like Gremlins in the way you wanted me to.
Well, I also just like to bring up Gremlins occasionally.
I know.
Yeah.
I know you do.
It's the holiday
and to be
treat.
frank, I just got my ass kicked by a bunch of Christmas cookies, so let's keep this moving.
With us tonight, special guest. It's a bottle of Magic Rabbit. Oh, no, sorry, that's my special guest. A special guest here on the show tonight is the one and only returning once again, Zac Kurgas with Knife.
That's his action figure. If it's horror, you know it's almost definitely Zac Kurgas or Tanner Calver, and at this point, it's pretty much
Zach. Yeah.
Yeah. Tanner will be here for National Treasure later this month.
Yeah,
sit tight for that.
He's been dropping the bucket lately when it comes to horror films, but but he does love him some National Treasure. But that's not what we're talking about tonight. True. We're talking about Krampus, released on December 4th, 2015, directed by Michael Dougherty, who also did Trick or Treat and Godzilla King of the Monsters. Both great films. I don't know, Hunter, I don't know if you've ever seen either of those.
I have not, and I put them both specifically here from his filmography for the both of you. I don't recall what else he was listed for having done, but these were the two standouts that I went, well, they'll appreciate that.
Godzilla King of the Monsters is the best American Godzilla movie out of all of them, I would say.
Yeah.
Yes.
I would say. And Trick or Treat is a fantastic Halloween anthology film featuring Sam Hain, one of Zach's favorites, I know for sure.
Yeah, I love Little Sam. The graphic novel is really fun too, because it shows you he's been around forever.
He likes him so much, I believe. Didn't you buy him in Call of Duty? No, you bought Ghostface.
No. I think Johnny bought him.
Yeah.
I bought Ghostface and Terrifier.
Yes, which you get to use for about a week before they release Black Ops 6.
Well, he still plays Warzone, man. He's still running them.
Well,
and now it's Christmas time, so of course Terrifier is out.
Yeah.
Obviously.
No need to play Warzone anymore. Zac Kurgas, put your fears at rest. Skibbity Toilet is now available in the Fortnite store just in time for Christmas. And Mariah Carey will soon be thawing from the block of ice. That's a true story.
You sent that link to the group chat today, and let me just, speaking of sentences that I love, I quickly skimmed that article and read this phrase. Mariah Carey is currently within a solid block of ice. As of December 18th, players can't actually interact with Mariah Carey until she thaws. Sometimes I feel like, is his name Jasper from The Simpsons, where he's in the Quickie Mart and he goes, "Moon pie, what a time to be alive."
You got Skibbity Toilet, you got Mariah Carey thawing over there in a block of ice. It's the best timeline. In Fortnite. Oh, somehow Mariah Carey returned.
Oh boy!
Written by Michael Dougherty, who also co-wrote X2, which is the best X-Men film, other than First Class, but the original versions is the best one, and Superman Returns, which I like. Superman Returns. I thought it was fine. It was fine.
I don't remember one solitary second of Superman Returns. Not one bit of it.
Is that the one with
with what?
That's the one with
Brandon Ruth.
Brendan Ruth, yeah. That he both directed and wrote this movie is kind of cool. Now he co-wrote it again with Todd Casey and Zach Shields. I couldn't find a thing about either of them. As best I can tell, they're not noted writers. So I think probably Dougherty did the heavy lifting and maybe they punched it up a little bit. But yeah, directed and written by the same guy. So a lot of times that's a fine line to walk, right? We've talked about this. You got somebody who has a really strong creative vision, and that can be a good thing, and that can be a not so good thing. And I think it worked here without giving anything away. I think it made sense to have the person who really had a feel and an eye for the story to also be the one kind of directing the action.
He also didn't star in it, because that's the triple threat. When you write, direct, and star, that's the hat trick. Yes. That's when it gets really dangerous, right?
Right. Not an actor, didn't have to worry about that.
I find that the lower the budget, the more likely it is that your director is also your writer and your lead actor. You know what I mean?
Correct.
For many reasons. Usually. Starring Adam Scott, you may remember him from Parks and Rec and many other things. Toni Collette, who we just reviewed not too long ago in Hereditary. And talk about a tale of two Colettes. She's fine in this movie. Don't get me wrong. She's fine in this movie. Toni Collette's just a great actress in general, right? But the difference between her performance in this versus Hereditary, where I think they just told her, go ham, do what you want. Very different performances.
One of the things I love about her is she's so versatile.
Yeah.
And even though she's instantly recognizable, like she has a unique face and you can look and go, oh, that's fucking Toni Collette. There's no question about it. She disappears into a role. Like when she sinks her teeth into a role, this overly commercial mom is decidedly different from the grief-stricken mom from Hereditary, the artist. Yeah. And yet, in a lot of ways, they're still they're not the same character, don't get me wrong, but they have kind of the same path of mother in a horrible, unnatural situation who doesn't know what to do. I mean, same concept.
Yeah.
Totally different plays.
And it's so easy for actors, especially when you're in a similar role, to feel like this. And, we talked about Bruce Willis in Die Hard. I like Bruce Willis. I think he's fine. But any Bruce Willis action film that he's in, other than something maybe like The Fifth Element, because it's such a weird sci-fi tale, you see John McClane. It's John McClane. It's Bruce Willis. He's the action hero. Well, Toni Collette does a good job, I think, of taking a similar role, but creating separate personas, if that makes sense.
And to not to get ahead of you here, but to borrow from this movie alone, the other listed named actor is David Koechner, who plays David Koechner in everything he's in.
Yes,
and don't get me wrong, he's great at that, but he's never not been David Koechner. David Koechner in this movie as Uncle Howard is David Koechner as Todd Packer on The Office, is David Koechner as what's his name, Champ Kind, sports reporter from Anchorman. He's always that guy. He's like man's man, dumbass,
unlikable,
way over the top,
but
charming.
Yeah.
Dickhead.
He kind of has that Randy Quaid feel from the Christmas.
Vacation.
Thank you, God. I couldn't think of it. Yeah, Koechner's giving off big Quaid energy, which I hope it stops there.
That's BQE.
You don't want too much BQE. It's got a and there's other people in this film, and I'm sorry, I couldn't tell you a single one of them, except actually the grandmother, the aunt. I do know her. I can't remember her name, but I remember her in.
Yeah, she's in a handful of things.
She was in a CBS comedy, and that's what I always remember her from. And I need to look her up real quick because I need to know what that comedy is.
I'm on it. Allison Tolman is her name. And I knew I recognized her too, but she... 2.5 Men. Okay, yeah, so she's on that.
She's the maid. She's also from Mr. Deeds.
No, not Allison Tolman. That's the sister.
I thought that's who you were talking about.
No, I'm talking about the aunt.
The older one?
Yeah. She's the maid from
2.5 Men. 2.5 Men. Yep, and she was there was something. She was at ER. That's not the ER I'm thinking of. No, sir.
She's also the lady who beats up Renata Ryder in Mr. Deeds.
Never seen it, but I do know for a fact that's Jordan Lowry's favorite film.
See, Allison Tolman, I knew I've seen her in a bunch of stuff, but it was the FX version of Fargo that really stuck out. That's what I was trying to think of. She was in the first season of Fargo on there. Also very good, but again, not listed, not in the named main cast for whatever reason.
And I'm actually looking through the cast now, and I'm like, wait, what? Is this true? Because I didn't know this. Apparently, Seth Green is in the film as Lumpy.
Yeah, he's one of the gingerbread.
And Justin Roiland is in the film as Clumpy.
Yeah.
Well, that doesn't surprise me. I mean, both of those guys working voice actors regularly. I didn't know that they were listed for that. But, and again, those characters don't really say anything other than just random sound effects.
Right.
Yeah.
But they're the two that survive. So
it's got a runtime of 98 minutes, which is a good time. That's a pretty good. We say that's near the sweet spot. Budget versus box office: $50 million budget versus a $61 million budget box office. This was it's not a blockbuster hit. Don't get me wrong, but it made money. It made money, and it's a nice little slice of Americana.
I mean, most of the time we talk about the take on this. I'm more impressed by the budget this time. This movie only cost $15 million to make. I know there's not a ton of location changes or whatever, but for all the special effects that they had to work, and to also do a lot of practical stuff. I mean, a lot of practical. I was going to say a lot of the monster work is practical. Really, I mean, the gingerbread men obviously aren't, but a lot of that very practical stuff. And then you've got some fairly heavy named actors, at least in Adam Scott and Toni Collette. You got to imagine they're commanding a decent salary. So $15 million is fairly impressive, I think.
I wonder how much of this was they bought into the film because they thought it was a fun premise and they wanted to do it, as opposed to give me a payday type thing.
There's some of that, but at the same time, I mean, as a SAG working actor, you've got to. We make the joke all the time from the sketch, but that's my rate, that's my quote. They have to make a certain amount, and then that way they get that much the next time. It's like an annual budget for a lot of other jobs. Like if you command less this time, then you're never going to get that difference back.
Well, it's like a cosmic gumbo.
Well, that's what they called it on the set, is what I read. It's in the trivia down there. They called it a cosmic
gumbo. Critical reception, 67% on Rotten Tomatoes, 49 out of 100 on Metacritic, which is mixed or average, and a cinema score of B-. So not beloved, but not disliked. It's very average. Of course, Roger Ebert unfortunately had passed long after this movie before this movie came out, so we don't have a review from him. I imagine he probably, if I had to guess, Roger Ebert would have given this, I want to say probably 2.5 out of 4. I think he would have liked it. He would have found the flaws in it, but I think he would have liked it overall. So what is this movie about? We said it at the beginning. Yeah, basically a little boy who still believes in Santa Claus, and his in-laws come for the holiday season. They're just awful. Including the husband and wife, the wife being the best one of them, because she seems like a loving. She reminds me of my mom in a lot of ways, in that loving mother who isn't perfect, but you could tell loves and you know what I mean, like has to deal with these awful people that she has around her, like my mom did with my father and me. David Koechner, who's just the worst in this film. Two sisters who their dad wishes were boys. And then a baby and Howie Jr. who never says a word and dies in the dumbest way. But
I was gonna say, at least not until he's actively dying,
getting yanked through a fucking chimney by the gingerbread man. So after enduring this, he rips up his letter to Santa, which summons the mighty Krampus, who is actually, is deep in folklore, especially German and Austrian folklore, I think it is.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's the anti-Santa Claus. Zach, you know about Krampus. Tell us about Krampus.
Oh, yeah. So Krampus Day, I'm not even going to butcher what they actually call it, but it actually is like December 5th. But originally when he came out, he is either, in some stories, he's either the brother of Santa Claus or he's Santa Claus's best friend.
Or Shadow.
While Santa Claus, and basically while Santa Claus is giving toys and all these, he's over here beating the bad kids, and you gotta.
Are they crying while he does that? Is there crying going on?
Yeah. Oh yeah. And he's got the chains, and he's got a backpack, so he can put him in his backpack if he wants, and he's got switches that he just carries around, and apparently in this movie he's got a bunch of little toy army that I love.
Yeah, so let's start with that real quick. I know we're skipping around a lot, but that's kind of people expect that from this show. The Krampus movie itself is fine. Like, it's a fine horror tale of a family suffering through the worst 3 days of their lives. What really stood out for me with this film, because otherwise the film's just kind of average, but the monster effects in this film are fantastic. Other than the gingerbread man, because they're CG and you kind of had to do that, and they're funny, don't get me wrong, but compared to the Jack in the Box monster or the cherub, and the teddy bear, those things are genuinely horrific.
Or even the elves. Like, the elves look like, I don't know if that's supposed to be their face or a mask, but either way, they don't look friendly. They don't look like elves.
All of it was demented as hell, but the moment that they actually revealed the Jack in the Box monster, that was when I went, okay. I literally sat up on the couch and went, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
This thing is disgusting.
Yes.
You will have nightmares about it. I'm pretty sure I did, as a matter of fact. When Sarah was in the hospital that weekend, I was there for 2 nights, and don't get me wrong, nobody really slept very well. She wasn't sleeping well. She was uncomfortable. I'm in a hospital overnight for the first time, but there was one night I remember, when I have nightmares, I make this kind of like guttural kind of moaning, and I woke up to her across the room throwing her blood pressure cuff at me to wake me up because I was making this sound, and she's like, "Yeah, you're having a nightmare," and I don't remember at all what it was about. I think I said something when I woke up, and maybe I gave it away then. I knew for a second, but I'm content to believe that since we watched this right before that, it had something to do with that. So who knows? Yeah. I don't know.
It'd be well worth it. Go ahead.
I was just going to say it's probably because of how proper Mr. Jack in the Box is. He's like that little girl, and then you see him pick up that napkin, and he's like,
oh my God.
He dabs his mouth a little bit. The mouth that splits in 3 like a fucking sandworm.
Like the Predator.
Yeah.
And then he's like that roar or like growl he's got is just like.
I'll tell you the only thing I didn't like about him was later, and okay, they never make this very clear. This is just a thing that bothered me in general. When they're out in the snow and things keep just pulling them down into the ground, is that supposed to be him?
No, I think that's a different monster, but they never show it.
See, that bothers me because they never show it. I have no idea what it is, and my instinct was, well, it's him because he can like burrow in the ground or whatever. But then show him again. You've got him there. At this point, there's no point not revealing him because I know what he looks like. That was a problematic scene for me. I just show him again. Just make it him. Give me 5 seconds of it being him, and that'd be great.
I honestly disliked the whole snow thing in general because, like you said, they don't show what it is under the snow, and they should have because they showed everything else. And two, it seems like such a cheap way to get rid of some of the characters. Both Adam Scott and Toni Collette are just like, love you, bye.
They just give up.
They just go down.
You have to go. You have to go.
I feel like they were definitely punched for time because at that point they were gone.
Yeah. But the build up to
the only thing I could think of that it could have been besides the Jack in the Box, because the Jack in the Box is the only thing that really makes sense from all the items we were shown. But maybe his like chains, but I don't think Krampus's chains are spawn chains.
They're not sentient.
But I don't know. Like, he was also wearing a man's face, so I don't know what this guy.
Until you told me that, I didn't realize that. By the way, I've seen this movie multiple times. I saw this with my ex-girlfriend in theaters. We both loved it. And I remember the first time I watched it, I thought his jaw was just kind of hanging open. It wasn't until you mentioned that it was someone's face that I realized his eyes were goat eyes, and he's a goat. And he's just wearing...
Yeah, you can see his, like, goat mouth. Mouth a little.
Yeah, his little goat mouth. Like Psylocke, Hunter.
I'm on it.
Okay.
I'm on it. I'm just... I'll change the nickname now to Little Goat Mouth. I don't know who I'm going to get rid of, but there's a lot of animals in here right now. We'll talk about it tomorrow. But
I really loved the setup for all of it. Like, the moments you spend with the families building into it is really well done, because you could really feel the frustration of Max, the kid. The other family is just insufferable. I mean, they're just awful in a believable way. Because people are obnoxious like that. And the way it begins with him seeing the snowmen outside and more snowmen coming outside, the fact that it gets colder, that there's way more snow that you can't see outside of the yard. When the sister goes to try to find her boyfriend's house, and you first get a glimpse of Krampus as he's jumping from rooftop to rooftop. What a great introduction for the villain. It's genuinely scary and kind of awe-inspiring seeing him jump from roof to roof like that. I thought it was very well done. A lot of the times, the first time you see the monster is so important. Think back to Alien. Think back to Predator. We talked about the little Predator mouth earlier. Or even Ninja Turtles. The first time you saw Ninja Turtles in the old 90s film or 80s film or whatever. Yeah. The first time you see the main thing has to be well done or you'll lose the audience. They did a great job with this, having him jump from roof to roof like that and then basically pull her under, or you never see what happens to her, but the car starts shaking and she's done. So.
Well, there was a Jack in the Box, so I had to assume it was him that got her.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah, because she looks over and there's a Jack in the Box there, and then we just hear her scream, and I think it's that same sound effect that thing makes. So I guess it ate her too. That thing's got a huge kill count in this movie. Yes. I'm fucking sick of Conjuring giving movies to like The Nun and shit. Give me the Jack in the Box movie.
I want to see the prequel to that. Yeah. I also thought the sister was going to be one of the main characters. They built her up in the movie as she's going to be Bane.
I will tell you, I thought that was kind of a flaw. I wish she had been. I think she would have been more interesting to watch than some of the others. Because really, once she's not really that problematic. No. Like, she doesn't love Christmas the way her brother does, but like she sticks up for him. She feels bad for him. She's the one who keeps him from like getting into trouble when they're starting to read his letter.
She's supposed to get high with her boyfriend.
Was the point. Right, I guess that was the point. Was remove her so that all the bad people can get shit on. But like he kills her first, and I was like, well, fuck this guy, man. She didn't really do anything all that wrong.
Yeah, she was.
And I guess that's the point. He's the villain, but then like it's hard to root for him when he's killing the people that should be dying. Because he killed one who I didn't think should be. She didn't really earn that.
You could say, though, too, is because she left her family to go hang out with her boyfriend. She would rather be with her boyfriend than her family around Christmas time.
Yeah, because it's not that she wanted to go find civilization. She just wanted to get away from everybody.
Yeah, she wanted to go with homie on the...
And really, at that point, are we not all guilty of that shit? Like, if that's what it is, Krampus gets me day one.
Krampus gets everybody. Yeah, he's got he's got to have a very high bar if that's a thing.
I mean, to be fair though, I think at that point, because I think once the letter and all that, you see those storm clouds. I'm pretty sure at that point they're already like in essentially his realm, and so he's already targeting that whole family. So no matter what her crime is, and I think the only reason that Max is left is because he's the one that made the wish. Just like
the grandma,
she made the wish, and she was left as the one.
Okay, two things about the film that drove me crazy a little bit more the second time. I think it's like the third time I watched it. So Krampus is punishing this family, right, for their misdeeds. Why did he kill? Why did he kill the poor truck driver? Why did he kill the snowplow driver?
Because remember, in the end, nobody really died. None of that happened.
That's true.
And we don't really see him he's frozen. He's like a flash froze, but maybe just because he was in there during that time, because he had to deliver that package. Because when you see him, he's like, they ask him about the present, and he's like, I didn't bring that.
Zach, that's the equivalent of saying,
kind of like WandaVision thing.
That's like saying a terrorist didn't kill someone; they just happened to be in the building when it exploded. I didn't mean to kill him. He was just there. Not my fault.
No, I'm not saying he's dead. I'm saying maybe he's just like frozen in time. Like he saw, but because he took everyone, because everyone else got taken, and he was
But here's another take on that too. We don't know that the family knew this guy. We don't know that the family knew him at all. So is he even a guy? Did they just use that to just to freak him out? Because we never end up seeing anybody else dead or anything like that.
Yeah, that's true. Because. And everyone else just so happens to be out of town, and then her boyfriend's house is all
the boyfriend's family.
Never seen anything.
They're clearly dead too, right? There was stuff smashed and on the ground and stuff. They're dead, right? They got eaten.
But they didn't stay dead. And I think the whole point from the beginning was that based on the grandma story, if Max apologizes sincerely, then he gets his family back, which is what happens. But they're going to be monitored forever. If he doesn't, then they all go away and he gets left. And I assume anybody else who was used in the setup to that also gets to come back. Because clearly Krampus can just undo that shit.
He can do whatever he wants. He's Krampus. Apparently he's Jesus.
Right. Which, by the way, let's talk about that for a second. Krampus is more powerful than Santa Claus.
Yes.
What does that say about what message are we sending with this film?
Evil is Santa superior.
Right. Well, it's the Spaceballs bit, right? Good will always lose evil will always win because good is dumb.
Yes.
Santa can he can get all over the world very fast and he can give gifts and everything. Krampus has the gift of life and death.
And domain over hell, apparently. And the underworld.
Apparently.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Every time that I watched it, I always just thought of it kind of like how I said, when he was summoned and the clouds come in, at that point, they're kind of in I'm not going to say not their world, but it's more of I think it's a standalone thing. At that point, you're in his dimension, he just copied it and he's making it seem whatever he wants to. And that's why you see their house, her boyfriend, the boyfriend thing. You know what I mean? He could have. All of the houses could have been messed up, just in case they went there, so that way they think, because why would they be the last one? Just because the kid made the wish, he's there to torture the town, But I don't know. I could be wrong. But every time I've watched it, that's how I always thought of it. Was at that point they were already cursed. And probably already in a version of hell or wherever he takes them. And then if you survive, you go back. You just go back.
I agree with the first part of that because it very much seems like it explains why the snow was so bad and why they couldn't escape because there was nowhere to escape to. They were trapped in this little pocket dimension, or the original ending of the film, or at least the ending that some people believe is that they're not dead. But they're trapped in basically a snow globe. They're trapped in this snow globe for eternity, and that would explain why they can't go anywhere. Is because they've been isolated from reality. But when you start to think about the truck driver and stuff like that, especially if if it is true that, okay, well, if Max does this, everybody can come back, and Krampus doesn't just kill indiscriminately. Krampus is taking a big risk on killing these guys, going like, the kid will pull through. He'll pull through, don't worry.
He's gonna do it. He's gonna surprise you here soon. You just wait.
He's gonna explode.
You just wait.
Why is Santa Claus just like okay with this? In the same way as why is God okay with the devil?
I don't think he has a say in it. Does he? No. I think it's more of a like, once you're a dick, like he can't do anything about it. You're on the you're off his list. You're not his problem
essentially anymore. When the kid ripped up his letter to Santa, he essentially was like turning his back on Christmas, and like in the short story thing that they do for Grandma, she's from Santa Claus, and basically turned their back on him. And because I guess they destroyed Santa, then I don't know, man. I can't tell you that much.
Well, see, man, I think I got you on that one because again.
I was going to say, she wished her family away. That was the difference. She wished her family away. She says in the short story, I wish they would go away, and then they did, and I regretted it. Max didn't do that. All he did was rip up the letter and go, this is stupid. And that was enough for Krampus to go, all right, well, your entire family's fucked.
Didn't he say, I wish you were all gone, or something like that? He says something like that when he rips up the letter.
Not when he rips up the letter. I think he does it before that. It's at the dinner where he says something real rude.
Well, that's what I meant, yeah.
Well, at the dinner, he tells them that he hates them all. And then he's like reading the letter, because the letter was basically just him trying to ask Santa, like, help my family.
Right.
Like, be a family again. And it was either he said that he wanted them to have, like, it to be like the old days or something like that.
Yeah.
When he runs away from the table, he says, I just wanted Christmas to be like it used to be, but forget it. I hate Christmas. I hate all of you. And that's when he runs away.
Which isn't the same as saying, I wish they were gone. But it's also, they specifically say in the movie, it's not what you say, it's how you feel. It's what you feel.
Yeah.
So,
and he threw it out the window, and then the wind, and then Krampus was like, ooh, 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 ooh. All right, let's go.
I'll do it forever just to hear Zac make that noise.
Krampus the Hut.
Yeah.
It was ready.
This, I really, well, I don't want to spoil it too much, because I don't want to give it to my review. But I think it works very well as a comedy. It is very much a black comedy, and I think my favorite part of the film, other than the monsters, I just want to mention this before I forget, it's after he has the big blow up with his family, and he goes to his room, and his dad comes in, and he kind of explains to him, yeah, that's kind of how family is, you know, we do it this way, we do it whatever. And he asks,
try to find some common ground.
Yeah, and and he says, "Do you really believe that?" And Adam Scott just kind of goes, "I really want to. I want to believe it." And it's a genuine moment. It's because everybody feels that way. It's not that you do believe in this stuff, but you want to believe in this stuff, And
there's even some comedy in that too, because then he says, like, it's just family. You just gotta put up with them. And Max goes, "Why?" And he goes, all right, well, you got me there.
Yeah.
I don't really have a good reason why we have to do this, why we have to tolerate these people.
The other thing I wanted to mention before I forget it, because I forgot it once, I don't want to forget it again. I said there were two things that kind of drove me a little bit crazy. One was that thing I mentioned earlier. The second is we watched today at the store, we watched the SNL skit where they did the Star Wars spoof, where Charles Barkley is, how do y'all know so many languages? You talk to her in your language, they respond to their language. That was in this movie a bunch. Adam Scott and his mother were talking in two different languages and understanding each other. And I always go, just speak the same language. And Lindsay said, well, it's easier to understand than it is to speak sometimes. And I was like, shut up. And then I drank.
I was, it shouldn't have bothered me, but I was also a little surprised that both he and his son speak German, and no one acknowledged that, like, this kid fully knows German. Because, again, she apparently didn't live there for that long. It'd be different if it was like, oh, yeah, we came over when he was little, and, we've assimilated really well or whatever. Not that you need to acknowledge that. It's kind of like when a character has a prosthetic limb or has a disability of some kind. Like, you don't have to get into why. I don't need a backstory or an origin for all of that, but it stood out. I'm not going to act like it didn't stand out. It definitely got my attention. You were talking about Santa Claus earlier, and speaking of things I'm going to forget, Santa has a long history of not giving a shit if you're not cool, right? I mean, the man has a naughty list, right? He specifically has a whole list. Right, he has a whole list of kids that he's not going to give gifts to. He's not the benevolent, God that you want him to be. So that's why why does he let those things happen? He doesn't just let them happen. He actively hands them off to somebody else and goes, "Here, these are yours.
It's your problem now. These are your kids." Yeah.
He mails them Krampus, and he's just like, "Ooh."
Stop it! Stop that right now. Let's get to the reviews for Krampus, the 2015 Christmas classic, which Real
quick, while I'm thinking of it, the David Koechner character not only is great in fulfilling the role that he does, but I love that that's how they justify getting guns. I love that that's how they justify getting weapons into the thing. He's just a right-wing MAGA gun nut.
Yeah.
Sure. Why not?
It makes sense.
He says something to Adam Scott's character at one point. I'm trying to remember what it was. He said something like, "I'm sorry, I thought you were like a sissy, or I thought you were a fairy all these years." And it's very offensive, but in a nice way,
Oh, yeah. Because, he defended him. He fired 2 shots from that fucking 357 Magnum, and he's like, "Yeah, it turns out you're kind of badass." And you can see Adam Scott just like, "Thanks, I guess." Like, I
love the part where the sister character, where the one kid gets swallowed up and she grabs the axe. She's like, "I'm done with this shit."
Goes nuts.
It just goes nuts. Of course, it did nothing because none of the monsters ever died. Right. You couldn't kill them. But
they can't.
Yeah, that's kind of the point, though.
The whole idea.
Yeah, is that they are. There is one part that kind of that irritated me when they hear the noises outside or whatever, and the grandma just says elves, and then the elves attack. How the fuck do you know they were elves? You didn't say anything about that before. You old German bitch.
You know about these elves and you just don't say nothing. Come on now,
Most of what happens in this movie is convenient timing, and of course I guess you kind of have to give some of it a pass later, knowing that it's mostly a dream. Right? Essentially, it's a dream. All of it was a dream. None of it really happened, or it did, but you were all going to be safe. Which is one of those things that I just kind of had to deal with.
Sure.
It's okay. I don't love the "we're going to undo everything that happened" mentality, but
I was fine with it.
I think they tried to. Yeah, I think they tried to save it with the okay, but we didn't really undo it. There's still something to it. I don't know. A couple of times it was a little bit of a hat on a hat at the end for me. Like, it was a dream, but was it really? But he's kind of watching them, but what's really happening? But what's going on? Like, oh man, just make it a lane. Just tell me what the fuck is happening.
I was a little irritated with the fact that, like, okay, Grandma, you went through this once, right? How far into this plot are you going to go before you tell everybody what's going on? Because she tells them eventually, but she knows from the beginning. How many many squirrels got to die for you to look fly? How many of these kids got to get snatched up before you stop being all fucking cryptic and going, "Don't let the fire die." You just go, "Look, there's a thing called Krampus, right?"
They kind of play it off.
I ain't lying.
Play it off like it's trauma, like it's PTSD, and she doesn't want to revisit it. But it's like, okay, but it's happening now.
It's happening now.
And this is your family, and they're going to die.
Yeah,
right.
It's no longer time for creepy German story time. It's time for full on and tell me what the fuck's happening with Krampus.
I'm on it. Creepy German story time.
This is one of my pet peeves in horror films. When something happens that it's kind of outlandish and no one might believe you, but at what point do you see something or experience something that you don't do the, "okay, I'm not going to say anything" thing? So many times in horror films, they will straight up see the ghost in front of them screaming at them, or they'll see the monster or whatever, and they don't say anything because they're like, "Well, I don't want to sound crazy." No, sound crazy. If there's a fucking monster out there killing us, I want to know. Yes. Please,
tell
God.
me everything.
God.
Because what's the alternative? You tell them that and they don't believe you? All right.
Then it's on them. Right. You tried. You made an effort. Okay.
They're not going to lock you up in the basement.
All right, let's get to the reviews, that old German bitch. On this show, we do a 5-point system inspired by the greats, and that goes 2 thumbs up means you absolutely love it. 1 thumb up means you like it. 1 up, 1 down means you're neutral, you're indifferent to it. 1 down, you didn't like it. 2 down means you hated it. Famously, very few films have gotten 2 thumbs down across the board. We always like to bring up Dog Soldiers as the example, right? It's not the worst movie we've ever reviewed, but it was the most disappointing.
The first one.
Yeah.
It was the very first one that got 2 thumbs down across the board. It was episode 8.
And the most painful one too. You expect it with Neil Breen. You expect it with some other things, but not dog soldiers. Yeah. Anyway, I'll go first because Kaz isn't here. So, I love horror, and my favorite thing about horror is when you combine horror with another genre, whether it be a horror western or historical horror. Like there's a great series on Netflix called Kingdom. I'm a big fan of. It's fantastic. I also really liked Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, stuff like that. I like when you mix horror with other stuff. You can only watch teens go to a camp, or teens go to the middle of the woods, or teens do this or that before you go, come on, let's do something different with horror. Let's get a little bit crazy. Christmas horror is a genre that isn't explored very often, and usually when it is explored, it's explored with, once again, teens doing something weird, or there's a serial killer. It's always like a crazed Santa Claus. You know, it's like a Santa serial killer or something like that. There's not a lot of Christmas horror films where it's not that. A Christmas Horror Story is another really good one that people should check out. It's not perfect, but it's fun. Krampus, I think... well, actually, I'll have to rethinking this now. Because I just thought about Gremlins again.
You're letting Gremlins taint so many things around your life lately.
I think so. I'm going to say this now, and I know this is a controversial statement for Hunter, but he knows I mean it. I truly believe it. Gremlins is a better film. I think Gremlins is a better film. I love Gremlins, and they're both Christmas horror films. I was going to say Krampus is the best Christmas horror film there is, but
But there are other options out there. I don't know about you. I haven't seen them, like Black Christmas, like that.
But they all end
better
up
watch out or whatever.
Again, they all end up being crazy Santa Claus, serial killers, whatever.
Yeah, I haven't seen them, so Jack Frost would like a notion.
Fucking
here.
Christ! The story of how many people, the true story of how many people rented the wrong Jack Frost.
Yep.
At Christmas time.
Thinking it was the Michael Keaton was the other one? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. They thought they were getting Batman Frost, but no.
They were not. There are some really good Christmas horror options other than this. You're right. You know, but I think for like a monster movie, I really, really like this film. I hesitate to say it's the best Christmas horror film because Gremlins exists, and I do love Gremlins more than anything. But I think as a straight up horror where you don't really have to like question, as Hunter did, rightfully so, question what road were they driving on here? Like where were they really steering to? And this film pulls no punches. It's a horror film through and through. It's a black comedy, sure, but it's a horror film. They never try to trick you with anything. It is what it is from the beginning. It is coherent. It's not perfect. I mean, the storyline is basic. Some of the motives are a little questionable. Some of the actions, like not explaining what Krampus is, you old German bitch, and getting people killed can be a little bit controversial. But as a horror film and a Christmas movie, I can't think of many films that work better than this. It is funny on occasion. It is scary on occasion. The monsters are fantastic. The actors are all great. I have very few problems with this film. I'm giving it 1 thumb up because I don't think it's a perfect film, and I don't think it's as good as something like Gremlins. I hate to keep coming back to that, but I think Gremlins is like the Christmas horror film. Sorry. I'm just trying to get you not mad at me. But this is a really good film. It's a lot of fun. If you're like me and like Zach, because I know Zach is a big horror fan, like I am. Actually, Zach's probably a bigger horror fan than me. I'm going to be honest with you, and I would never relinquish that title without serious consideration. This is a lot of fun. You were going to have a lot of fun with this movie. The monsters are great. For the monsters alone, I think it's worth it. Some of the most creative creatures I've ever seen. I really liked it. I think it's fun. 1 thumb up from me. I got 2 thumbs up for Gremlins. All right, Hunter.
They know, man. They can just go back and listen. They can just go. Do you want to do Gremlins again?
No, because I can't take that pain again.
How many times do I have to teach you this lesson, old man?
But
I'll watch Gremlins with you.
But Gremlins too.
We could do 2.
I think we should do 2. I think we should do 2.
We should do 2 at some point.
I love Gremlins.
Yes. Yes.
And
we'll bring Shelby back.
I know. Anyway.
This film, though.
This film is also going to get 1 thumb up for me. Although I think if you had to break it down between the two of us, you're the one that's closer to, you would edge it over into the 2 territory, and I'm the one that would be closer to edging it into the 1.5.
Yeah,
or to the middle ground. I don't disagree with a lot of what you said, but in the wake of a few days after having seen this movie, I think the biggest problem I have is that it's just kind of forgettable. Outside of some specific things, the monster design is incredible. Right. That's a blast, and the actors embodying the characters, the main ones anyway. Toni Collette, Adam Scott, David Koechner, again, the main named cast doing an incredible job with what they had. I think one of my biggest problems in the wake of this, and why it does feel a little bit forgettable, is that I wish it treads that line of horror and comedy really well, almost too well. I wish it had leaned a little more in one or the other direction. Because it's decidedly, overall, I would have to say it's decidedly more horror than it is comedy. And since it's PG-13, not that I need, just blood and guts and the most horrible shit ever for it to be good horror, but there definitely were times where I went, I wish that had been a little more intense, that disgusting fucking Jack in the Box monster, instead of just swallowing people, shred them. Like, I definitely want to see some wildness coming from it, instead of just like feet slipping into a mouth and then disappearing, which sounds like a movie Kirby wrote. Kirby, the Nintendo character, he swallows things.
Well, famous horror writer Kirby from Nintendo.
Right. I almost wish it had been a little funnier. There's some moments of levity and comedy, and those are three great comedic actors, including Toni Collette. She's also very funny. There are times where I wish it had been a little sillier and a little over the top, which is probably going to drive you crazy because now you're going, well, that's just fucking Gremlins, you asshole. but yeah, no, I liked it and I had a good time watching it. There were times where even in a 98 minute runtime, it was a little slow for me. It was a little bit of, we've done this. It's on a hat again. We've done the, how many times are we going to go up the stairs slowly with the gun to see what's up there? Like, we know, man, just go balls to the wall at this point. Just run around and go crazy. I think the best part of the movie is once they stop acting like nothing weird is happening and they're just like, all right, fuck it. Again, I just got my ass kicked by Christmas cookies. That's one of my favorite lines of the whole movie because Koechner is so damn serious.
Well, she says it. She says, you're not going to believe me. And his justification is, no, I just got my ass kicked by Christmas. Again, Grandma, you old bitch. How many of the kids would still be alive if you had brought it up earlier?
What wouldn't I believe at this point? Exactly. I thought the ending could have been punched up a little bit. Again, I didn't really love the let's trudge through the snow and get picked off one by one. Like you said, I felt like it was kind of a cheap way to get rid of some of the characters. Let's drop the kid into hell anyway, but then he wakes up. It was a dream, or was it a dream, or was it this? And the ending's ambiguous, but it's not really because it doesn't really make as much sense one way. And I thought that was a little bit much. You could have trimmed some time there and given me a little more time with that scary ass Jack in the Box. Easily my favorite thing in the whole fucking movie. That thing was horrifying. It's one of my favorite movie monsters that I've seen of the year for sure.
One of the all-time, I really mean it, one of the all-time great horror movie monsters, I think. It's
so fucking scary.
It's so good.
Because the thing is, it's scary before it ever does what's supposed to be scary. Like, before it opens the tri-split mouth and does the weird Demogorgon shit, like, a giant disembodied, and by that I mean out of the box, Jack in the Box, slithering around with like a weird old painted clown face. That's scary in and of itself. I don't even need the weird, disgusting mouth. Like, the rest of it is scary. So, yeah, I mean, overall, concept-wise, I liked it. I liked the setup for it. I loved the monster design. I thought the acting was pretty great from the people who were doing the heavy lifting there. I had some problems with the story. I didn't love some of the scenes, and I thought some things could have been trimmed or reorganized. I'll give it a solid 1. If I had to edge in one direction, it'd be back toward the middle. But I think it's better than a middle ground movie. It's better than that for sure.
I agree with a lot of what you said there. 100%. Zac Kurgas.
God, I posted a picture of it.
Yeah, I can feel it. Oh God, look at its little slug body.
Now that I'm seeing it in still, I realize that, like, again, a $15 million budget, that's just one of those tunnels that you let your kids run through, right? Yep. And it's just been dressed up with a bunch of weird shit.
With the box the box on the end, and then the little puppet there at the top. Yeah,
that's a good move, man.
It reminds me. Sorry, Zach, I'll say this, and we'll get right to your review. It reminds me a lot of Godzilla -1. Godzilla -1 is a fraction of the budget of the other Godzilla films. and it looks fantastic because they did more with less. And that's what they did in Krampus, I think. It was very creative the way they created their monsters. They saved money, and genuinely, I think some of the best horror movie monsters I've ever seen. But what does Zac Kurgas think? That's what everyone wants to know. I'm getting messages about it right now. Zach.
Well, I'm going to have to agree with you. It's not as good as Gremlins. I'll give you that.
Pissing off old Hendrix there.
I will say real quick though. So it's not the Jack in the Box. I hope this helps you guys. It's not a puppet. That's actually a person. That's the top half of it. It's like a contortionist.
That's worse.
Doing it.
That's worse somehow.
Yeah. So that's a fun fact for you. But no, I really enjoy this movie. I remember when it came out, I was really excited just because I got a weird thing. I don't know. I like Krampus. I heard the story of Krampus.
Don't word it like that. Don't just say I've got a weird thing. No. Don't word it like that.
I don't know. Like when I learned about Krampus as a kid because I did, if I'm not mistaken, I think I did a paper on it in English. Because they have a parade about this. Like, there's a whole thing still. Like, they do this on a yearly thing. Like, Krampus is the one that it comes if you're bad. Like, this is how we teach our kids not to do bad things, apparently, is we threaten them with going to hell and be beaten for a little bit. But yeah, no, I really enjoy this movie. I think the practical effects are really good. And Krampus himself, he's disgusting looking. His tongue, I don't know why.
Why? Why did they have a tongue?
Because every edition of Krampus has that tongue. He's always going, it's in the thing.
And now we know why he likes doing that so much. There it is.
But yeah, no, I agree with you. Grandma should have spoke up. She had that ornament this whole fucking time. Like,
she had the ornament.
Yeah.
You had physical evidence of this shit.
Yep. But I think
that old bitch.
I think at the end, if the kid would have just walked away and just kind of let him do his thing, I think the kid would have survived, if that makes sense. Because Grandma survived. She didn't get trapped in a snow globe with her family. Right. Like, her family probably got trapped in a snow globe.
They're probably trapped in the snow globe.
Well, Zach, they did survive.
That's not a thing.
Yeah, we'll get to that here in a second.
They're just being monitored.
We'll talk all about that once we get your official review.
Yeah, they probably did. Just because, like, the actual lore is, like, he doesn't kill you. Krampus comes, he kidnaps your kid, if they've been bad, and you get a certain type of punishment for the crime that you've done, and then he, like, brings you back after you've been punished or you've learned your lesson, so to speak. Because they all remember what happened when, like, I'm pretty sure that they all hear the voiceover. Yeah, like, it's kind of, but I do love when he's like, he goes to him and he's like, please, I just want him back, and he cries. And you think, like, Krampus is just like, oh, okay, like, he actually might do something to help him. And he, like, brings out that weird, nasty, bony finger, and he just cups his little tear, and then he just starts laughing, and they all start cackling. His wampas start hitting their heads against each other. And then he just like,
his
all right,
wampas, come on.
They look like wampas. That's what they are, right?
No,
I probably
fine. It's fine.
Hey, not to interrupt your interview, or your review, but it occurs to me now as we're talking about the grandma's story doesn't make any fucking sense, right? Because because her parents are gone. So what happened after? Like people came along, they're like, "Why are you here alone?" And she's like, "You're not gonna fucking believe this."
Well, she doesn't tell them the story. She just tells them to keep the fire hot.
But I'm saying, then how does she? Like, was she just raises herself as a fucking 8-year-old for the rest of her life?
Yes,
until she has children and then like moves to America.
Well, I assume she turned to child prostitution, and that's how she had children.
I mean, like, we get no explanation for this part of the story at all.
Well,
like, she just apparently as a child. I'm getting ahead of myself.
Yeah.
Just believe you me.
All right. So, Kurgas, what is that from you? What's how many thumbs? I don't know if you said it.
So I'll give it one bell up. I'll do bells.
One bell.
Ornament. we'll do an ornament because whatever.
One bauble.
But I agree with. I enjoy it. I watch this movie all the time, so I'm excited that we got to do it and that you guys didn't hate it.
No, I like this movie a lot. I liked it
too. I liked it when I was watching it for sure. I mean, I'm critical of it, but I'm not trying to be fucking Simon Cowell, but I think it has reached a point where I'm a little more critical of most things for whatever reason. So,
I do think though,
that's me, I guess.
I think though, if it had an R rating, it would fit even more as that perfect horror movie. Just seeing what he did with Trick or Treat.
I disagree.
Shannon and I are about to agree here. Yeah, I think it would be worse.
Yeah.
I think it would be worse.
I
really do.
So this film very much, and it ties into the ending. This film, despite the fact that it's a horror film, it's still kind of a family film. And I think showing too much would have ruined that of it. And I think they hit the sweet spot on it.
I think a little bit of blood helped.
No, unless I remember incorrectly, nobody in the family dies in like a gory way, right?
Just that one being eaten, which you were talking
that's probably
about.
The worst.
But even then, it's not like gory. Like she just swallowed. No. She just swallowed whole. So I think that was kind of playing into the I can give them back at the end. I think if it was the gore effect of just dismembering people and cutting them up, then when they came back at the end, you'd be like, oh, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like in this case, it was more of he just stole them.
So growing up,
they're just kidnapping.
Growing up, I always thought that horror movies should be R-rated. They need to be bloody, they need to be gory, et cetera, right? As I've gotten older, I've realized that you don't need an R rating to make a good horror film. And I think this movie is a good example of that. It's PG-13. The monsters are incredible. It works so well on so many levels. You don't have to see her get swallowed and then dissolved into a skeleton or something screaming. You don't always need the most horrific ending. And that actually ties into the ending because there's two interpretations of what happens. Let's talk about that real quick. So in the end, Krampus confronts Max and gives him a bauble wrapped in a piece of his discarded letter. And realizing that he was responsible for Krampus's coming, Max chases after the demon and confronts him at the edge of the fiery pit, begs for Stevie to be spared, and offers himself up as a sacrifice. Krampus refuses. It tosses Stevie into the pit, which is a shame. I like Stevie. Maxi Pad. Max sincerely apologizes for losing his spirit. Although Krampus seems to accept his apology, he still tosses Max in as well. And I actually think an important thing to mention there is when Max first makes his plea to Krampus and he does the whole weird finger teary-eye thing, and they all start laughing at him, right? And then he grabs him and goes to throw him in the pit, and that's when Max apologizes to him and says he's sorry. Yeah. And you can see Krampus pause for a moment. I think that's the moment that Krampus decides to spare him. It wasn't when he begged. It was that moment. He still tossed him in the pit, I think, is just a final, okay, but here's the alternative if you ever fuck up again.
Right, exactly.
But you can see it in Krampus's, well, I was going to say his face, but as Zach pointed out, it's not his face, it's someone's face.
You can see it in his eyes, though.
You see it in his little goat eyes, yeah.
Well, you can see, the way they dilate and, I don't know.
You see the reaction. You see the reaction in his eyes. It's very much the point. Right. So Max, after this, he awakens in his bed on Christmas morning and discovers that his family is alive and well and concludes that what happened was just a nightmare. However, as they find Krampus's bauble among the presents, the family exchanges troubled looks, recalling memories of the horrific events. The house is then shown through a magical surveillance snow globe, along with hundreds of others in a vast collection in Krampus's underworld lair in the mountains of Central Europe, for him to monitor and spy on for having spared them. So that is the official ending. And that is what the comic book states, is that he is spying on them. Basically, he's monitoring them to make sure they don't step out of line again, or else consequences will never be the same. But the other version that people have latched onto, as I said earlier, is that they're trapped at the snow globe. They're not dead, but they're kind of in limbo, forced to relive the same Christmas over and over again, because that's what Max wished for. He said, I just wanted it to be like it used to be. So now Krampus gave him his wish, but it's a dark alternative where he has to live that out constantly. And a lot of people like that version of the ending better, but I disagree with them. I used to feel that way. I thought that was the better ending because it was darker. But as I get older, I realized that part of the appeal of horror films back in the day, especially, was you had this horrible thing happen, but there was always a hope spot at the end. Hunter, to tie it into wrestling, there was a hope spot at the end where it all comes together and you have the victory and you have the moral victory, et cetera, whatever. Horror films today have turned their back on that to the point that it's almost become a trope. The trope is that with horror, even if the good guys win, there's always the twist at the end that shows you that they're going to be miserable forever. And that works sometimes, but it doesn't have to be the standard. It's okay to have a good feeling for an ending. It's okay to have a victory. Ellen Ripley didn't need to die at the end of the original Alien after she, saved the cat or whatever. You don't always have to have the good guy die. I think the better ending for Krampus is that they are alive, that they have memories of this terrible thing that happened to them, but it's not as bleak. It doesn't always have to be bleak, Hunter, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think you even see that the family did kind of learn lessons, right? When Max comes down Christmas morning, the people are still themselves, and they're still kind of over the top. Yeah, but they're not total dicks to each other, and they seem to be at least enjoying each other's company. He got what he wanted in that it is like it was. Now, I think, okay, I could get on board with the understanding of they're trapped in limbo, it's purgatory, whatever. If it was Max who was being punished and the whole family was like way too saccharine for their own good, and pretty quickly you figure out it doesn't take quite as long to figure out something is wrong, right? Yeah. This felt very legitimate and realistic. And of course, when he sees the bauble, it's just that moment of, oh, okay, so all that shit was real, right? We're all looking at each other thinking it wasn't a horrible dream I had. That really did happen. We all just know we can't ever fuck up like that again.
Right.
That to me makes a hell of a lot more sense from a logical standpoint and, like you said, from a storytelling standpoint.
That's the superior ending, because everyone's happy, like, oh, it's that classic ending of, oh, it was just a dream, and everyone's, even the people that were mean to him, like, she pulls out the Nux and she says, hey, she still calls him Maxi Pad, but it's in a joking way and he's laughing about it. But then they find the bauble, and it's the realization of, oh God, everything we went through, none of it was a dream. We really suffered all of this horrible stuff. I think that's a better ending than they're trapped in there forever. That's just me. But I agree. It's the final realization that it wasn't a dream. And I love that it's like a double punch, because they could have ended it as it was just a dream, and that would have been acceptable. People would have been okay with that. But the gut punch of, no, it wasn't a dream. Everything's real. Krampus is real. Watch your ass, new meat. I like that ending. I think that's good.
I also I'm glad that it doesn't end as was it a dream? We don't know what's happening. And then as you pull away from the house, like there's no bauble or whatever, then Krampus like flies across the screen or some jump scare shit. Fuck that. That's the PG-13 ending I was kind of expecting, or I would have been expecting had I not kind of known what was coming.
They do have that ending, though, now that I think about it. In Krampus's lair, all the monsters jump at the screen at the end, and I didn't mind it.
And that's fine. That's whatever. Because at that point, the storytelling part is done.
Right.
What I don't want is, was it real? Was it real? Oh, there he is again. Who knows? No. Give me a legitimate answer to some degree, and then you can have your jump scare fun.
Zach, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I do love those gingerbread men, though.
So, am I the only one?
So bad, but so good.
Am I the only one that thinks that they may have been the inspiration for the little mini puffs in Ghostbusters? I don't know why. I always think they're very similar to each other.
I don't know about inspiration, but they serve the same purpose, basically.
Goofy they're little cute villains.
Yeah, cute little creatures that will overwhelm you and don't mind to like destroy themselves to get you.
Except these guys pull a fucking nail gun on David Koechner.
They do that,
one jumping at him with that candy cane shake.
He's going to stab him, but then the dog eats him.
Cane shake. He just eats him.
I have to give the movie this is my little thing. I have to give it some credit and some additional points for not only does the dog not die, but the dog absolutely fucks it up. Like
it has a heroic moment. Yeah.
Yeah. It has a good time.
Go get that Jack in the Box, son of a bitch.
It was good overall. So, epilogues. What happens to the characters? I'll take it from the what happens to these characters after the film. I have two versions of this, the realistic one and the movie version. The movie version is that they actually live great lives going forward. Knowing what they went through was true. It creates a realization in them. They self-examine. They come out better people for it. And in the end, everyone's happier. Everyone lives a better life because they understand what family and love is and all that. The realistic ending, though, is that one, they're traumatized to hell. And there's no possible way that a human being can keep up that goodness for that long. And eventually, Krampus is going to come back and collect what he's owed, to quote the Boondocks. There's no way anyone's ever going to be that, because eventually you'll forget about it. Human nature is that even knowing something is horrible for you and will lead to the worst possible ending, you still do it. Look at cigarette smoking. Look at this bottle of alcohol that I have here that I'm currently enjoying with my mouth. Eventually they're going to slip up and Krampus is going to come back. And when they see him, he's going to make a specific, like, ho, ho, ho. No, Zach, what's the noise? What's the Krampus noise? Yes, that's the one.
So that's the beginning of the sequel, right? Yeah. If this movie ever does get a sequel, which is wild as hell to me that it came out in 2015, they've
grown
never
up
actually
versions
followed up as a film.
Grown up Beth.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that's the sequel. The first 10 minutes of the sequel are, and we don't know it's her. It's just somebody fucking up Christmas, doing horrible shit. Krampus moves in quick. He doesn't play games with them this time, and then we find out that that's who it is through some like pictures in the background or whatever, a family photo from this one, and then basically there's that "I told you" moment. I fucking told you what was going to happen. And then this happens. And then you go on to the new film, which is, whatever that is.
It's a different family.
Can I pitch you?
A different family.
Oh, no.
Can
I pitch a sequel?
Yeah.
Can I pitch a sequel?
Well, that's the point of the show.
You could totally do another family, but what really different would there be? It'd be kind of a lot of the same things, right? I mean, you could do an updated version because it's 10 years later, so almost definitely somebody's mad that there's a gay couple, right? That's got to be a thing. There's something else there at the family.
Something political.
Whatever. The beginning of this movie has one of my favorite intros for a movie that I've seen in a while, which was the just overrunning people at a Black Friday sale, people just trampling each other and it reminded me a lot of the opening to, and I just said I don't love Zack Snyder that much, but his version of the Dawn of the Dead, the mall, and it reminded me a lot of that whole thing set to, is it that movie that begins with For Whom the Bell Tolls? Is that what I'm thinking of, or is that Zombieland? That's Zombieland, never mind. Different movie. You know what I mean. Point being, set your sequel somewhere like that. Set your sequel in a fucking department store or something. I know that's not as common a thing now, but some kid has to deal with a mall Santa. He doesn't get what he wants. There's a bunch of other asshole kids around whom would give him a hard time. Same situation happens and Krampus moves in on the fucking mall. And it just goes down because everybody
more
there
monsters.
Hates their
more
lives.
Monsters.
Yes.
Yeah.
More monsters, more victims, more people to contend with. I don't know how you end it. I don't know, and I don't care. But the first 10 minutes is basically a Scream movie, right? The first 10 minutes is dealing with a character from the previous film who gets offed because they didn't follow the fucking rules after they were told to, and then we move into the story. That's what I want to see.
I'm going to hit a major spoiler with everybody real quick. I mentioned Christmas Horror Story earlier. It's well worth watching. If you've never seen Christmas Horror Story, spoiler alert, because I'm going to spoil the ending for you real quick. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, there's your warning. So one of the stories in Christmas Horror Story is Santa in his workshop. One of his elves gets sick and dies, which is insane because they don't die. They specifically say elves don't die. What's going on? That elf comes back as a zombie, which then starts infecting other elves.
Fuck.
Yes, and Santa eventually, he's fighting off the elves, he's killing his elves, and eventually he finds Krampus, and he's like, I knew you were behind this, and there's a big fight between Krampus and Santa at the end of the film, like a fucking, not a martial arts fight, but it's really cool. It's really fucking cool. I think you do something like that in this film. You have Santa and Krampus have their showdown at the very end. Maybe one of the people in the mall, they really believe in Santa, and Santa comes to save them, and you get that epic one-on-one fight that everybody wants in the end. I think that would be cool. Tie them together. Zach, what about you?
I'm here for it.
Yeah, no, I agree with both of you guys. Sorry, no, I looked up the Christmas Horror Story, so I'm looking at it, and it looks pretty cool. Picture Santa Claus with Krampus, but it's $7 on Vudu, so we probably will have it too.
So, real quick, just as a fun little aside, you know who plays Santa in that movie? It's the voice actor for Beast from the X-Men cartoon, George. I forget his last name.
Oh shit!
But he plays Santa. Cool. He's so good in it. And
Shatner's also in it.
Shatner's in it as a radio host. Yep. All right. That's going to do it for us tonight on the Krampus Holiday Spectacular. Hunter, what else we got coming up for extras and epilogues?
I'm hung up on the phrase Krampus Holiday Spectacular. So for this week, our very cagey Christmas film will be Face Off, 1997's Face Off.
Well, Hunter, we're going to take his face off.
His face off. That's happening later this week on Friday. Next week, because we missed our first week, we've got some double features for you. So before Christmas happens, on the 23rd and the 24th, you will hear our last two Christmas movies for the month, which is A Christmas Story, which we're reviewing with Cody Sandusky, and then A Muppet Christmas Carol with Lindsay Wolfgong. And then after Christmas, our last two Nicolas Cage movies of the year, we're doing Raising Arizona, and then we're also covering National Treasure. Tanner's coming around to do National Treasure, of course. You started to say you lost it at something, and I had to be very professional. What I missed?
Oh, I just want to point out that in the movie Face Off, Nicolas Cage and his brothers are named Pollux and Castor.
Castor and Pollux.
God
yeah.
damn.
And their last name is Troy.
Troy, yeah.
Like, it's all,
God
I mean,
damn.
They're not even trying to hide the fucking, the Greek concepts are about as subtle as a tack hammer to the dick, is what's happening in that film.
Well, it's directed by John Woo, so like great action,
it's true.
But the subtlety is not there. It's an anime, basically.
Not there.
Yeah.
So yeah, you have another Extras and Epilogues coming up this week, and then yes, you heard that correctly. Next week, the week of Christmas, it's not a double feature. It's not a triple feature. It's a fucking quadruple feature. Now, technically, we were going to hold National Treasure over until the week after. We may record it then. You may hear it the week after. But basically, between now and the end of the year, you're getting a bunch of new E&E. And then also this week, tomorrow night on Thursday on After Dark, it is our Christmas preview. What that means, I don't know. I put it on the calendar. I turned to Lindsay and I said, figure it out.
Well, Hunter, I'm sorry. I'm looking ahead towards the trivia for Face Off. And you mentioned it before, I think. But the prison is called Erewhon, which is an anagram of nowhere.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. We didn't even mention in the trivia for this movie, by the way. I have to mention this because Calvin and Hobbes is one of my all-time fucking favorite things in general, especially comic strips. Max's mom in this movie, Toni Collette's character, at one point in time talks about the noodle incident, which is what kept them away from their neighbors. Like, basically, their family had some situation called the noodle incident with them. So that's from the Calvin and Hobbes strip, and neither one of them ever explains it. Bill Watterson included that in Calvin and Hobbes early on, and then said numerous times, like, I was going to explain it, and I realized nothing I could explain would be funnier than whatever the reader had imagined. So every once in a while, he'll drop in a hint about, don't you remember the noodle incident? Calvin will be like, that wasn't my fault. All right. I didn't have anything to do with that. I love that little hint. That's just one of my favorites.
I also, before we get out of here, I want to mention that this movie just once again proves, and I mean this wholeheartedly, Toni Collette is a national treasure. She's so good.
One of the best actors. I mean, one of the best working actors.
I genuinely love Toni Collette, and I did not realize, I just looked her up, I did not realize she's Australian. She does such a flawless American accent. I had no idea. It's insane.
Absolutely.
Toni Collette, you're the motherfucker of the year, but in the best way. I just want to tell you that. Between this and Hereditary,
I'm sure
she's
my God.
Glad. Well, yeah, I've got her on the. She's messaging me right now. She said, "Thank you." Oh, that's good. Thank you, Toni Collette. All right, that's going to do it for us tonight. We'll be back tomorrow with our Christmas preview. Hopefully, Lindsay knows what that means because we don't. I want to thank Zac Kurgas for being here, and of course, Double H, and for myself. Thank you guys for tuning in. The theater is now closed. We'll see you tomorrow. Until then. Hunter, please ask Zach to do a line from the film and then ask Zach to make the Krampus noise one more time because I love it.
Zach, I told you we should have gone to stay with my brother. Oh.